What happens when the scent of vanilla and cinnamon lures a ruthless billionaire into a quiet bakery, only to find the woman who will shatter his carefully constructed world? And what if her simple charm awakens a part of him he thought long dead, even as his business empire threatens to destroy everything she holds dear? Before we dive into this emotionally charged tale of destiny, deceit, and the unexpected power of a second chance, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and tell us in the comments if you believe true wealth is found in the heart, not the bank. Every morning, Ilera Rossi rose at 4, long before the first hint of dawn colored the sky. Her small but strong hands kneaded the bread dough with precise, instinctive movements. Years of practice transformed into a silent dance. The bakery had been her grandmother's, then her mother's, and now it was hers. A modest shop in a middle-class neighborhood, with cream-colored walls and the comforting aroma of vanilla and cinnamon that always made customers smile. "Good morning, Dona Isabella?" Ilera greeted a regular client, handing her a sweet pastry. Her genuine smile hid the gnawing worries about the rent that increased every year and the accumulating bills on the table of her tiny apartment. Despite everything, Ilera deeply loved her work. Each pastry was a small work of art, each bread an expression of love for a craft few still truly valued. Her fingers always smelled of butter and sugar, and though shadows of exhaustion marked her 26-year-old face, her eyes held a determined, unyielding spark. Meanwhile, 20 minutes away, in a glass and steel office that dominated the city skyline, Julian Thorne reviewed emails on his iPad as his assistant updated him on his day's agenda. At 35, he was one of the country's most successful businessmen. His real estate empire grew with every project, and his reputation as a ruthless negotiator preceded him in every meeting. "Anything else, sir?" Sophia, his assistant, asked from the door. "No, Sophia, you may leave." The silence that followed was the kind Julian preferred. Everything in his penthouse apartment was minimalist, cold, and calculated, mirroring the decisions he made daily. He rarely cooked. His meals were usually at elegant restaurants or ordered from private chefs. The very concept of baking something with his own hands felt as alien to him as showing vulnerability. His phone vibrated. It was a message from his mother, Maria. "Son, don't forget tomorrow is my birthday." Julian glanced at his calendar. He had completely forgotten. Since his father, Robert, had died, his relationship with Maria had become even more distant. In his childhood, she had always tried to soften Robert's relentless character. But Julian had learned that, in the cutthroat world of business, compassion was synonymous with weakness. Normally, he would send expensive flowers with a card signed by his assistant, but something stopped him this time. Perhaps it was that persistent sense of emptiness that, lately, even his immense success couldn't fill. "I'll bring her a cake," he decided suddenly. A personal gesture, something he hadn't done in years. That same afternoon, his luxury car pulled up in front of the small Sweet Hearth bakery. He had researched online, and reviews mentioned this place as the best for traditional cakes. He entered with a firm stride, like someone accustomed to the world adapting to him. The gentle chime of the bell announced his arrival. Ilera was meticulously decorating a tres leches cake, utterly absorbed in the intricate details. She looked up and saw a tall man in an impeccable suit, with a serious, almost unreadable gaze. "Good afternoon," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "How can I help you?" Julian looked around, noticing the faded family photographs on the cream-colored walls, the clean but worn counters, the simple wooden tables where a few customers enjoyed coffee with sweet bread. It was a world utterly different from his own. "I need a cake for tomorrow. It's my mother's birthday." Ilera smiled. "Of course. Do you have a flavor preference? Something your mother particularly likes?" For a moment, Julian went blank. It had been so long since he'd thought about his mother's preferences. "I'm not sure," he admitted, feeling a strange discomfort. "Something traditional, I suppose. I have a walnut and cajeta cake that's very special," Ilera suggested, her voice warm and inviting. "It's a family recipe." "All right," he responded, surprised by the natural warmth in her voice. He wasn't used to people speaking to him so naturally, without the reverence or fear he typically evoked. As she wrote down the order details, Elara looked up, and their gazes met. It was just an instant, but something in the air shifted. Two utterly different worlds had just collided, and neither suspected how this simple cake order would irrevocably change the course of their lives forever. Julian returned to the bakery the next day to pick up the cake. The sweet aroma enveloped him as he entered, awakening childhood memories he believed long forgotten. Elara was attending to an elderly client, patiently explaining the different types of bread. Her dark hair was neatly pulled back in a braid, revealing a makeup-free face and an authentic smile that contrasted sharply with the calculated expressions he was accustomed to. "Your cake is ready, Mr. Thorne," Elara said when he approached the counter. Julian was surprised she remembered his name. The cake was simple yet elegant, decorated with candied walnuts and delicate script that read, "Happy Birthday, Maria." It wasn't the kind of cake he would normally order. Yet it had something special, something profoundly personal. "It's perfect," he murmured, and for the first time in a long time, a genuine smile touched his lips. Elara handed him the box. Their fingers brushed for an instant, a subtle spark of connection. "I hope your mother likes it. Can I buy you a coffee?" The words left his mouth before he could even think them, a spontaneous gesture of gratitude. Elara hesitated. It wasn't her custom to accept invitations from clients, especially not from someone like him, who clearly belonged to another world. But there was something in his eyes, a profound loneliness that resonated with her own. "I have 15 minutes before I prepare the afternoon bread," she finally responded. They sat at one of the small tables. Julian seemed out of place in his designer suit, but the simple coffee in a ceramic cup between his hands created a curiously harmonious image. "Have you always worked here?" he asked. "As long as I can remember. My grandmother founded this bakery 50 years ago. It's part of my family, part of my history." Julian nodded, contemplating how his own life lacked such deep roots. His offices changed every few years, always seeking the newest, most impressive, but never truly anchoring him. In the days that followed, Julian invented excuses to return. One day he needed bread for a meeting. Another day he wanted to try the cinnamon rolls he'd seen on the counter. Elara began to anticipate his visits, though she repeatedly told herself it was foolish to harbor illusions about someone so profoundly different. A month after their first encounter, Julian invited her to dinner. To his surprise, she accepted. He took her to an elegant restaurant where waiters knew him by name, but Elara seemed subtly uncomfortable amidst such luxury. "Next time I'll choose the place," she said as they walked after dinner, and he smiled, understanding there would indeed be a next time. Their worlds began to slowly intertwine. Julian discovered the simple beauty of Sundays in the park, of homemade meals, of conversations without agendas or objectives. Elara, in turn, discovered museums she'd never visited and music she'd never heard. Between them, something fragile but powerful began to grow. One morning, while reviewing documents in his office, Julian received an email that sent a chill down his spine. It was from Victor, his main partner. "We have the green light for the Alameda project. The property owners have no idea what that area is truly worth. We'll start notifications next week." Julian opened the attached file. Blueprints for a luxury shopping mall in the very neighborhood where Elara's bakery stood. His company had secretly acquired several buildings in the area over the past few years. Sweet Hearth Bakery was marked in red on the map, pending acquisition. He ran a hand over his face, feeling a wave of nausea. When he met Elara, he had no idea her bakery was on the target list. Now he understood why the name had sounded vaguely familiar when he first saw it. That same evening, while they were having dinner in Elara's small apartment, she told him about rumors of evictions in the neighborhood. "Some neighbors have received offers to sell their properties," she said, her voice laced with worry. "They say they want to build something big." Julian felt the bite of food stick in his throat. "Have you received any notification?" he asked, feigning casualness. "No, but I'm scared. This bakery is everything to me. It's not just a business. It's my life." Julian's phone vibrated. It was Victor. We need to talk about the corner property. The owner is resisting selling. We'll have to use more persuasive measures. Julian silently turned off his phone and looked at Alara. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she spoke of her fear of losing her family legacy. You should consult a lawyer, he suggested, hating himself for his cowardice. To understand your property rights. Alara observed him with a flicker of curiosity. Why do you say that? Do you know something I don't? I just think it's always better to be prepared, he responded, avoiding her gaze. That night, as Alara slept peacefully beside him, Julian stared at the ceiling, trapped between two worlds that now threatened to collide destructively. On one side, millions of euros in investments, his reputation, his entire career. On the other, the woman who was slowly, miraculously making his heart feel again after years of profound numbness. He took out his phone and wrote a message to Victor. We need to talk about the Alameda project. There are complications. He knew this decision could cost him everything he had built, but for the first time in his life, money and power seemed utterly insignificant. He looked at Alara, sleeping soundly beside him, and wondered how much longer he could keep the truth hidden, and what would be left of them when the truth finally came to light. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. Alara found it slipped under the bakery door before she opened for the day. Her heart raced when she saw the words, "Official notification," in stark red letters. With trembling hands, she tore open the seal. You are hereby notified that, according to your lease agreement, you must vacate the premises within 60 days. The lines blurred as tears filled her eyes. She took a deep breath, wiping her face with the back of her hand. No, she wouldn't cry. She would find solutions. She called the number on the notification, but only received evasive answers. It's a corporate decision, they told her. The building will be demolished as part of an urban renewal project. Desperate, Alara went to the municipal office. After hours of waiting, a board employee showed her the approved blueprints. A luxury shopping mall called Alameda Premium. Who's behind this? Alara asked, her voice tight. The employee turned the screen towards her. Cardenas Developments. They are the main investors. The world stopped. Cardenas. The name resonated in her head like a hammer. Could it be? No, it had to be a coincidence. With trembling fingers, she searched for Cardenas Group on her phone. And there he was. Julian Thorne, CEO, smiling in the corporate photo. The very same man who had shared her bed the night before, who had whispered, I care about you, while caressing her hair. Alara felt a wave of nausea. Everything clicked into place now. The questions about the property, the suggestion to consult a lawyer, the mysterious calls he always answered in another room. That night, when Julian arrived at Alara's apartment for the dinner they had planned, he found her standing by the window, the damning documents spread out on the table. When were you planning to tell me? She asked without turning around. Julian saw the papers and understood. A cold dread washed over him. Alara, can I explain? Explain what? She finally turned, her eyes red-rimmed but dry, blazing with a cold fury. That while you were making love to me, you were planning to destroy my life. That all of this was, what, a game? Or did you want to make sure I sold cheap? No, he exclaimed, stepping closer. When I met you, I didn't know your bakery was in the plans. And after, I didn't know how to tell you without losing you. Alara laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. So you preferred to lie? Do you know what the worst part is? That I believed you. I thought you were different from what everyone said about you. What did they say? That Julian Thorne has no heart. That he'd turn his own mother's house into a parking lot if it brought enough profit. The words cut deeper than she imagined. Julian tried to take her hands, but she recoiled. I'm trying to stop it, he said, his voice raw with desperation. I've been in meetings all week, and you didn't think I deserved to know? That I had a right to fight for what was mine while there was still time. The silence that followed was deafening. Get out, Alara finally said, her voice trembling with a force she didn't know she possessed. And don't come back. You've already taken enough from me. When the door closed behind him, Alara collapsed onto the floor. Everything she had built, everything she loved was crumbling. And the worst part was that her heart was breaking too. Julian walked aimlessly for hours, ignoring calls from Victor and other executives. For the first time, the empire he had built seemed empty. He had lost something money could never buy. The next day, he entered the boardroom where his partners waited. "We have to stop the Alameda project," he announced. The uncomfortable laughter died when they saw his expression. "We've invested millions. Contracts are signed. International investors. We'll find another location," Julian retorted. But his tone lacked its usual confidence. Victor smiled coldly. "It's not that simple. If you withdraw, we'll lose financial backing from our main partners. Do you know what that means? Lawsuits, losses, legal consequences." Julian felt the tension in the room. The silence of the last few weeks weighed heavily on Amelia. A full month had passed since she asked Julian to step back. A month in which she had desperately tried to focus solely on Leo and on finding a better job. Yet, every night, when her son slept, her thoughts inevitably returned to Julian, to their complex, unresolved connection. One rainy afternoon, as she sifted through her documents for a job interview, she found her old hospital folder. She hadn't opened it in years, the memories too painful to revisit. "Someday I'll have to get over it," she murmured to herself, opening the folder, a wave of old dread washing over her. Inside were her certificates, evaluations, and the stark, official letter of dismissal. But as she moved the papers, a small, sealed envelope fell to the floor. She didn't remember ever seeing it before. With a growing sense of dread and curiosity, she opened it, pulling out a handwritten letter. "Dearest Amelia, by the time you read this, if you ever do, it's probably already too late. I didn't have the courage to speak when I should have, and now I carry that guilt. The night young Daniel Vance died, I was at the station with Dr. Ramirez. I saw him change the medication without updating the record. When I saw you prepare the treatment according to the file, I wanted to warn you, but the doctor ordered me to be silent. He said he would fix it, but he never did. When the investigations began, he threatened my job if I spoke. I have 3 children to support, Amelia. I was a coward, and I am so sorry. Now that I've been transferred to another hospital, I at least wanted you to know the truth. With shame and remorse, Carmen Soto." Amelia's hands trembled, the paper rustling softly. Carmen, the quiet nursing assistant who had vanished immediately after the incident. Finally, she had the proof of her innocence, written and signed. Sitting on the floor of her small apartment, Amelia began to cry. These weren't tears of rage or sadness, but of overwhelming relief. For years, she had carried the crushing weight of doubt, wondering if she had truly made some unforgivable error that night. Leo stirred, waking from his nap, calling her attention with small, sleepy babbles. Amelia wiped her tears and went to pick him up. "Mama didn't do anything wrong, my love," she whispered, kissing his small head. "I always knew it, but now I can prove it." Meanwhile, miles away, Julian stood before a marble headstone in the cemetery. "Daniel Vance, beloved son and brother," read the inscription. "It's been 3 years, Daniel," Julian murmured, placing a bouquet of white flowers. "And I still don't know how to live without you." The cold evening wind ruffled his hair as he stood in silent contemplation before his brother's grave. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions. The unexpected reunion with Amelia, getting to know Leo, and then the painful silence she had imposed between them. "I think I was wrong, Daniel," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "I always looked for culprits to avoid facing my own pain. Mother and father left so long ago that you were my whole family. And when I lost you, I lost myself." A cemetery guard passed nearby, greeting him with a respectful gesture. Julian was a frequent visitor. "There's a woman," he said after a moment, his voice softening. "The very one I blamed for your death. She's strong, determined, and loves her son like no one I've ever known." He smiled sadly. "I think you would have liked her." Julian sat on the bench in front of the grave, feeling the immense weight of his past decisions. I hurt her, Daniel, so much, and now I don't know how to fix it. He passed a hand over his tired face. She's right to keep me away. Who would want someone who destroyed their life? The silence of the cemetery was his only answer. After a while, he rose, touched the headstone one last time, and walked towards his car. As he started his phone, he noticed he had several missed calls and messages from his assistant about meetings and contracts. Normal life continued its course, indifferent to the profound storm raging within him. He was about to pull away when his phone vibrated with a message from a number he recognized immediately. I need to see you. Can we meet where it all began? Tomorrow at 8 p.m. Julian's heart lurched. Amelia wanted to see him. After a month of agonizing silence, he responded, his hands trembling. I'll be there. What profound impact will Carmen's letter have on Julian's perception of Amelia and his own past? And what do you think is the true meaning behind Amelia's choice of meeting place? Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of an intriguing mystery and a haunting past has you gripped, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next pivotal chapter. Time moved differently now. The following weeks unfolded with the tender caution of two people learning to know each other from scratch. Julian and Amelia began with small steps. Walks in the park with Leo, casual meals, and honest conversations that stretched into comfortable silences. I never imagined we'd be like this, Amelia commented one afternoon, watching Leo play in the children's area of the park. Sometimes it still seems unreal. Julian nodded, his gaze fixed on the little one crawling enthusiastically on the grass. Me neither. After Daniel, I thought I'd never feel connected with anyone again. Amelia looked at him sideways. In these weeks, she had discovered a Julian profoundly different from the cold, powerful man who had irrevocably altered her career. This Julian was vulnerable, sincere, even clumsy at times, particularly when he tried to change diapers or prepare Leo's bottle. Leo adores you, she said, seeing how the baby now crawled towards them, his eyes fixed on Julian. And I adore him, Julian responded with a smile, receiving the little one who now attempted to climb onto his lap. He's a warrior, like his mama. That night, after leaving Amelia and Leo in their apartment, Julian drove aimlessly through the city. Something profound had shifted within him. The nightmares about his brother's death, which had tormented him for years, were beginning to space out, losing their suffocating grip. The gnawing emptiness he had felt was starting to fill with Leo's joyful babbles and Amelia's cautious, growing smiles. Meanwhile, Amelia settled Leo into his crib, thinking about how much her own life had changed. Maria, her neighbor, came and went from her apartment, always vigilant, but increasingly less suspicious of Julian's presence. That girl should buy a lottery ticket, because with her luck, Maria had commented days ago, when Julian had taken them to a private clinic for Leo's monthly checkup. From hating him to this, who would have thought? It's not that simple, Maria, Amelia had responded. We're still getting to know each other? Maria chirped, her eyes twinkling. Getting to know each other. Ha! Maria let out a little laugh. I already see how that man looks at you. And how do you look at him? Amelia had dodged the conversation then. But now, in the solitude of her room, Maria's words resonated in her mind. She truly was developing feelings for Julian. It was possible. Forgiveness was possible. The answer came a week later, when Julian invited her to dinner. It was the first time they had gone out without Leo, who was cared for by Maria. You look beautiful, Julian said when he picked her up, a rare shyness contrasting with his usual business confidence. Amelia smiled, slightly nervous. It had been so long since she had gone out like this, that she felt like a giddy teenager again. Julian took her to a small restaurant, secluded from the city's hustle, nothing pretentious, but with a warm, intimate atmosphere. I didn't want to take you to one of those fancy places where everyone knows me, he explained as he opened the door for her. I thought you'd feel more comfortable here. It's perfect, she responded, grateful for his consideration. During dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Their childhoods, their truncated dreams, their fragile hopes. Julian told her about his parents, who had died in an accident when he was 20, and how he had to take charge of Daniel and the family businesses, barely out of university himself. Daniel was my anchor, my reason to keep going, he confessed, his voice cracking slightly. When he died, I completely lost my way. Amelia extended her hand over the table and gently took his. I understand, she said softly. When they took away my license, I felt like I had lost everything. Until Leo came. He saved me unknowingly. Julian squeezed her hand, grateful for her profound understanding. And you saved me, he murmured, his gaze holding hers. That rainy night, knocking on my window, you gave me back something I thought I had lost forever. Their eyes met, and for a moment, all the painful past seemed to vanish. They were no longer the powerful executive and the fallen nurse. They were simply Julian and Amelia, two wounded people, bravely learning to heal together. As they left the restaurant, they walked in silence through the less traveled streets. The night was clear, with stars visible despite the city lights. Without thinking, their hands sought each other and intertwined. A silent, comforting connection. Where are we? Amelia wondered after a while, noticing they had walked quite a distance. Julian smiled faintly. Right where it all began, he responded, pointing ahead. Amelia looked and recognized the place. The 24-hour convenience store in front of her apartment building, where she had desperately pounded on Julian's car window that stormy night. Now, under a serene sky, that place held a completely different, almost sacred meaning. It's funny how life works, isn't it? She said with a mix of nostalgia and wonder. Who would have thought that here, precisely here, everything would change for us? Julian stopped and turned towards her, his eyes reflecting the neon lights of the convenience store. Amelia, he began, but she gently placed a finger on his lips. You don't need to say anything, she whispered. Some things don't need words. Julian took her face in his hands with exquisite tenderness, as if he feared she might vanish. Their lips met in a soft, tentative kiss at first, but it quickly deepened, releasing all the pent-up feelings contained during weeks of cautious exploration. When they finally separated, Amelia had tears in her eyes. They weren't tears of sadness, but of that intense, overwhelming emotion that surges when something broken truly begins to heal. This doesn't erase what happened, she said, needing to clarify, needing to acknowledge the truth. There are still wounds. There are still fears. I know, he responded, gently drying a tear from her cheek. I don't pretend you'll forget, or that it will be easy. I only ask for the opportunity to build something new, something that is ours. Amelia nodded slowly. Step by step, she said, repeating the words that had been her mantra since he reappeared in her life. No rush, no demands. All the time you need, Julian confirmed, taking her hands and kissing them with reverence. They walked back towards Amelia's apartment, where Maria waited with a deeply sleeping Leo. The older woman looked at them with a knowing, complicit smile, but asked no questions. When Julian said goodbye at the door, he did so with another kiss, briefer but equally meaningful. Good night, Amelia, he whispered. Thank you for this night. Good night, Julian, she responded, watching him walk away down the hallway. As she closed the door, Amelia leaned against it, her heart pounding. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, not yet. It was barely the beginning of something that could be beautiful or disastrous. But for the first time in years, she was willing to take the risk, to believe that sometimes, just sometimes, second chances were truly worth it. What profound meaning do you think this first kiss holds for Amelia and Julian, given their complex past? And do you believe their love can truly heal the deep wounds they carry? Share your insights in the comments below. If this deeply emotional story of healing and unexpected love is captivating you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next pivotal chapter. Live with you. Amelia looked at Julian with surprise. Don't you think it's too soon? For months had passed since that rainy night in front of the convenience store. Their relationship had grown slowly, with the cautious tenderness of those who know pain, but also the vibrant blossoming of new hope. Julian had proposed that she and Leo move into his penthouse in Polanco. Just think about it, Julian insisted, watching Leo, who was now taking his first wobbly steps across the small living room. He'd have more space to play, you'd both be more comfortable and we'd be completely dependent on you, Amelia completed, crossing her arms. I don't want that, Julian. I don't need you to rescue us. Julian's face showed disconcertion. It's not about rescuing you. It's about being together. We can be together without me giving up my independence, she responded firmly. I'm barely rebuilding my life now. I got the job at the health center. I'm saving for a better place. Julian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated but attempting to understand. He wanted to give them everything, to protect them, to compensate for the past, but he understood that for Amelia, dignity and autonomy were priceless. What do you propose then? He asked finally. Amelia sat beside him on the worn sofa. Let's do things our way without rushing, she said, taking his hand. Give me time to establish myself, to be self-sufficient. Then we can decide our next step together. Julian nodded slowly. He was a man accustomed to being in control, to solving problems with speed and efficiency. But with Amelia, he was learning the profound value of patience. Agreed, he conceded, kissing her hand gently. We'll wait as long as you need. And so they did. Amelia began working as a health assistant at a public health center. It wasn't nursing as before, but it was close to what she loved. Every day she left early, dropped Leo off with Maria or at daycare, and returned late, tired but deeply satisfied. Julian, meanwhile, reorganized his life to be present without being invasive. He visited Amelia and Leo almost daily, but always respected her space, her burgeoning independence. Weekends were spent together, sometimes in public parks, other times at his apartment, exploring this new, fragile connection. One Sunday afternoon, while Leo slept his nap, Julian showed Amelia something on his tablet. I found this, he said with a hint of shyness. It's a program for you to recover your nursing license. They have special considerations for cases like yours. Amelia took the tablet with trembling hands. It was a professional revalidation program for health personnel who had lost their licenses for non-criminal reasons. Do you think I could? She began, not daring to complete the sentence. I'm sure, Julian affirmed. And I have contacts who could help with recommendations. Amelia returned the tablet with mixed emotions. I don't want favors, Julian. If I do it, it has to be on my own merits. And it will be, he assured her. I can only open the door, but it will be you who must cross it and prove your worth. That night, when Julian left, Amelia remained lost in thought about the possibility. What if she could recover her calling? What if she could be a nurse again? The next day, after dropping Leo off at daycare, she went to the center offering the program. She spoke with the director, explained her situation, and to her surprise, found profound understanding. She would need recommendation letters, theoretical and practical exams, and a period of supervision. It's a long road, the director warned her. But if you truly want it, it's possible. Amelia left with an application in hand and a renewed determination in her heart. That night, when she told Julian, he hugged her tightly, but without saying, I told you so. He was simply there, supporting her, a silent, unwavering presence. The weeks that followed were intense. Amelia divided her time between work, Leo, and studying tirelessly for her exams. Julian did his best to help without interfering. He took care of Leo when Maria couldn't. He brought food so she wouldn't have to cook. He remained in comfortable silence when she needed to concentrate. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast in Amelia's apartment, Leo called Julian in a way that left both adults utterly paralyzed. Papa! The little one babbled, stretching his tiny hands towards him. Amelia and Julian exchanged glances of astonishment. I didn't teach him that, Amelia clarified, surprised beyond words. I know, Julian responded, his voice thick with emotion, tears welling in his eyes. He took the child in his arms and lifted him high above his head. making him laugh. Leo repeated, "Papa," with even more enthusiasm. "It seems he's made his own decision," Amelia commented, a mix of tenderness and profound nostalgia in her voice. That afternoon, as they watched Leo play with his blocks, Julian returned to the topic of living together, but with a different focus. "What do you think if we look for a new place?" he proposed. "Not my penthouse, not your apartment. A place that's ours, where we can start together." Amelia looked at him with curiosity. "Would you abandon your luxury apartment for a more normal place?" "I'd abandon anything for you all," he responded with profound simplicity. Amelia felt something melt inside her. This man, who had once been her nemesis, was now willing to adapt to her, to respect her terms, to meet her where she was. "A new place sounds good," she finally conceded. "But I want to contribute. It has to be something we can both afford." Julian smiled, knowing it was useless to argue about money with her. "As you say, we'll look for something within our reach." And so began a new stage. They found a modest but comfortable house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. It wasn't luxurious like Julian's penthouse, but it had a small garden where Leo could play and enough space for the three of them. Julian reduced his work hours to be more present. Amelia continued with her revalidation process. Maria, of course, was a constant, welcome presence. At first, she visited daily, as if to verify that everything was truly all right. Gradually, seeing the genuine dynamic between them, her visits spaced out, though she remained Leo's official honorary grandmother. Not everything was perfect. There were disagreements about money, about Leo's education, about small everyday things. Julian, accustomed to giving orders, sometimes forgot to consult. Amelia, with her pride, sometimes rejected help she truly needed. But they learned. Day by day, mistake after mistake, they built something that, although not a fairy tale, had the profound solidity of something real. One night, while having dinner after putting Leo to bed, Amelia looked at Julian with a smile. "I passed," she said simply. "They're returning my license next month." Julian leaped up and hugged her, lifting her off the ground. "I knew it. I never doubted you." Amelia laughed, for the first time without reservation, without that invisible wall she always maintained between them. "Thank you," she said, looking into his eyes. "Not for the contacts or the money, but for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself." That night, under the stars of their backyard, they sealed this new stage with a deep kiss. Not as the end of their story, but as another chapter in a book they continued to write together, with all its imperfections and profound beauty. What do you think is the true meaning of Papa to Julian? And how does Leo's simple word mark a pivotal moment in their healing journey? Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of an evolving family and profound love is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of this extraordinary tale. The spring had fully arrived. The small garden of their new home now sparkled with vibrant flowers that Amelia and Leo had planted together. From the kitchen window, Julian watched his son, because he now considered him his son, chasing a butterfly among the bushes, his little legs growing stronger and surer with each passing day. "Look, Papa, blue butterfly," Leo, almost 2 years old, called out, his words clearer each time. Julian smiled, still marveling that the little one called him Papa. Sometimes he couldn't believe how much his life had changed in such a short time. The cold executive who lived only for work and was consumed by painful memories now spent his Sundays planting flowers and building sandcastles in the sandbox he himself had installed. "What are you thinking about?" Amelia asked, embracing him from behind. She wore her hospital uniform. She had started working there just a month ago after recovering her license. "How lucky I am," he responded, turning to kiss her. "How life takes unexpected turns." Amelia nodded. If anyone had told her 2 years ago that she would end up forming a family with the man who had destroyed her career, she would have laughed bitterly. And yet, here they were, building something authentic day by day. The adaptation hadn't been easy. Julian had to learn to live without excessive luxuries, to share decisions, to respect Amelia's boundaries. She, for her part, struggled against the pride that sometimes prevented her from accepting help, against the fear of depending on someone, against the ghosts of the past that occasionally returned. Leo needs a bath after playing in the garden, Amelia commented, looking out the window. And I need to get ready for my shift. I'll take care of it, Julian responded, kissing her forehead. Go rest for a bit before you leave. Amelia smiled, grateful. She worked the night shift 3 times a week, which allowed them to manage Leo's care without needing a nanny. Julian had restructured his company to be able to work mostly from home and spend more time with them. As Julian chased Leo to the bathtub, the phone rang. It was Maria, who now lived in the apartment Amelia used to occupy. How are my favorite boys? The older woman asked when Julian answered. Covered in dirt and chasing butterflies, he responded, laughing. Are you coming for lunch tomorrow? Amelia's preparing your favorite stew. I'll be there, boy. I wouldn't miss it for anything. Julian smiled. Maria had transformed from Amelia's wary protector into an ally, and with time, into part of their strange but beautiful family. That night, after putting Leo to bed, Julian sat on the back porch with a cup of coffee. It was his ritual while he waited for Amelia to return from her shift. Sometimes he read. Other times, he simply gazed at the stars, thinking about how life had blessed him when he least expected it. He heard the car pull into the driveway, and moments later, Amelia joined him, dropping down tiredly beside him. Difficult day? He asked, offering her his coffee cup. Complicated, she responded, taking a sip. But good. We saved a 5-year-old who came in with acute appendicitis. Julian took her hand, proud of her strength, of her recovered calling. I love you, he said simply, his voice filled with admiration. Amelia looked at him with that mix of tenderness and complicity they had built. I love you too, even if you are sometimes an unbearable stubborn mule. Both laughed softly. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was authentic. They argued, they reconciled, they learned together. There were no exaggerated promises or impossible expectations. Just 2 people building, day by day, overcoming old wounds, creating something profoundly new. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast in the garden, Julian noticed that Amelia was unusually quiet. Is something wrong? He asked, concerned. Amelia took a deep breath before responding. I was offered the position of supervisor in the pediatrics department. That's wonderful, Julian exclaimed, but seeing she didn't share his enthusiasm, he added, or not. It means more responsibility, longer hours, Amelia explained. I don't want to neglect Leo or what we're building here. Julian took her hands across the table. I'll support you no matter what you decide, he said with sincerity. But don't limit yourself because of us. We'll find a way. Leo, oblivious to the adults' conversation, played with his cereal, building small mountains on his plate. Are you sure? Amelia asked, insecure. I know how difficult it has been for you to adapt to all this, to a normal life, to sharing responsibilities. Julian smiled. I've discovered that I like this normal life, he confessed. And if that position makes you happy, we'll adapt. I could reduce my office hours even more, or we could hire help for the house. Amelia nodded, grateful for his understanding. That same afternoon, she called the hospital to accept the position. Julian hugged her tightly when she told him, genuinely happy for her. We'll celebrate, he declared. Tomorrow, we'll take Leo to the zoo, and then we'll have dinner, just the 3 of us. Amelia laughed, caught by his enthusiasm. The Julian she had known years ago, that cold, calculating man, seemed like a distant memory next to this man who planned family outings with the same passion with which he once closed multimillion-dollar deals. Life wasn't perfect. There were good days and difficult days. Sometimes Leo would get sick, and both would spend sleepless nights. Sometimes they would argue over silly things like who left wet laundry in the washing machine or who should take out the trash. Sometimes the past would return in the form of nightmares or bitter memories, but they had learned to face it together. Julian no longer fled from pain by burying himself in work. Amelia no longer isolated herself for fear of being hurt. They had grown stronger together, One afternoon, while Leo slept his nap, Julian found Amelia in the garden reading an advanced book on pediatric nursing. He sat silently beside her, contemplating her, marveling at her quiet determination. "What are you looking at?" she asked, looking up. "At you," he responded simply. "At the bravest woman I know." Amelia closed the book and rested her head on his shoulder. "I don't always feel brave," she confessed. "Sometimes I'm still scared." "Fear is not the opposite of bravery," Julian responded, gently caressing her hair. "It's part of it. The brave thing is to keep going despite the fear." They stayed like that in silence as the sun began to descend. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't know what the future held for them, but they had learned to live in the present, to value every moment, to build on solid foundations of respect and forgiveness. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better. A real story, imperfect but genuine. A love that had been born in adversity, forged between tears and laughter, built with patience and unwavering commitment. A true love. Part 3. A legacy of love and meaning. Leo ran across the freshly mown grass, chasing a colorful ball that bounced capriciously. At 5 years old, he was a whirlwind of energy, with Amelia's dark hair and the mischievous smile that made his eyes sparkle. "Look how high, Papa!" he shouted, kicking the ball that soared above the rose bushes. Julian, seated on the terrace under the shade of an old walnut tree, looked up from the report he was reviewing and applauded enthusiastically. "Excellent kick, champ. You'll be a great soccer player." Beside him, Amelia read a book of pediatric clinical cases, preparing for a conference she would give the following week. 4 years had passed since she recovered her license, and she was now head of the pediatric nursing department at the very hospital where she had once been unjustly dismissed. "Don't encourage him so much," she joked, without looking up from her book. "He already thinks he's the new Messi." Julian smiled, observing her with that mix of admiration and love that had never diminished. Time had brought profound changes for both of them. He had radically transformed his company, delegating responsibilities to be more present at home. She had not only recovered her profession but also the self-confidence she once believed lost. The house where they lived wasn't luxurious, but it overflowed with life. They had decided to stay in that first home they shared, expanding it a little when necessary. The walls were filled with photographs. Leo taking his first steps, his first day of kindergarten, beach vacations, Christmases with Maria, who at 73, remained the official doting grandmother. "What are you thinking about?" Amelia asked, noticing Julian's distant gaze. "How far we've come," he responded with honesty. "Do you remember that rainy night?" Amelia nodded, putting her book aside. Some dates were etched forever. The day she lost her job, the night Leo fell ill, the moment she recovered her license, and that first time in the rain, when she desperately pounded on the window of a stranger's car. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you had been parked a few meters further away," she mused. "Or if it hadn't rained that night, or if—" "It doesn't matter what might have happened," Julian interrupted gently. "What matters is that we are here, that we found our way, even if it was the hardest one." Leo ran over, his cheeks flushed from exercise, the ball tucked under his arm. "I'm hungry," he announced, climbing onto Julian's lap. "When are you not hungry?" Amelia laughed, ruffling his sweaty hair. "Go wash your hands. Food will be ready soon." The boy darted off into the house, leaving behind a trail of the vibrant energy that characterized him. "It's incredible, isn't it?" Julian commented, watching him go. "To think there was a time when I believed I would never feel joy again." Amelia took his hand and squeezed it gently. She knew exactly what he meant. She too had hit rock bottom. She too had felt life snatch everything from her. And yet, here they were, rebuilt but not perfect, with scars that no longer hurt but formed an indelible part of who they were. The doorbell rang, and Leo shouted from inside, "I'll get it. It must be Grandma Maria." Minutes later, the older woman appeared on the terrace carrying a paper bag, surely filled with sweets for Leo, despite Amelia's constant medical recommendations. "This garden is beautiful," Maria exclaimed, sitting with them. How are my favorite boys? Working too much as always, Julian responded, gesturing to the papers scattered on the table. Bah! You two never learn. Maria shook her head with feigned disapproval. Life is too short to spend it buried in books and numbers. Amelia and Julian exchanged a complicit glance. Maria would never change, and that was part of her charm. Leo returned, his hands now clean and ready for the sweets his grandmother always brought. Maria greeted him with an exaggerated hug, as if she hadn't seen him in months instead of days. As the afternoon slowly advanced, they shared a simple meal on the terrace. There were no luxuries or extravagances, just the profound warmth of being together. Leo recounted fantastic stories from school. Maria recalled anecdotes from her youth. Julian and Amelia listened, commented, laughed. A perfect symphony of shared life. A casual observer might think they were an ordinary family. They wouldn't know the abysses they had crossed to get there, the wounds they had healed together, the fears they had faced hand in hand. Remember when you thought you didn't deserve to be happy? Julian whispered to Amelia, watching Leo proudly show Maria his collection of plastic insects. Did you also believe that? She responded, resting her head on his shoulder. Both of us were wrong. It hadn't been an easy path. They had stumbled many times, they had argued, they had doubted, but they had never given up. Not on themselves, not on Leo, not on the family they had built against all odds. And as the sun began to descend on the horizon, bathing the garden in a golden light, Amelia looked around, at her healthy, happy son, at the woman who had been her pillar in the darkest moments, at the man who had transformed from her worst enemy into her most loyal companion. It wasn't a perfect ending because real life doesn't have endings. It only has days. Some difficult, some beautiful, most a mix of both. But they had learned to live them fully, to love them for what they were, imperfect but profoundly real. And in that moment, under the light of dusk, with Leo's laughter in the background and Julian's hand firmly intertwined with hers, Amelia felt that they had finally found their place under the sun. Not the one they had once dreamed of, but a better one, the one they had built together with all their scars, with all their truth. Friends, if this beautiful story of love, forgiveness, and second chances touched your heart as it did mine, don't hesitate to leave your comment below about which moment in Amelia and Julian's story resonated with you the most. Sometimes life surprises us with unexpected encounters, like that rainy night that changed our protagonist's destiny. Do you believe forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds? I'd love to know your opinions. And if you enjoyed this imperfect but authentic love story, please share it with your friends who also enjoy stories of redemption, and subscribe to the channel for more tales that remind us we all deserve a second chance. I'm excited to know who is joining us today. From what country are you watching this video? Tell me in the comments so I can know how far this story of love and redemption has reached.